Hi, my name is Dan Byram, and my wife and I served with ABWE, the Association of Baptists for World Evangelism, from July 2005 until our resignation in February 2016. On March 8th, 2015, there was a critical incident of violence, fistfight between two people, our 14-year-old son and an 18-year-old son of another missionary. That took place on March 8th. On March 16th, that altercation, that critical incident, was reported to ABWE Child Safety, to Nancy Hepworth. It was reported by Barney Robeson and Frank Weirman. Frank Weirman had been the witness to the critical incident. And 5 people in agreement it should be reported. Barney Robeson, Frank Weirman, who witnessed it, his wife Alvis Weirman, me, and my wife. So 5 people agreed it should be reported. So now I want you to go from March 16th, and I want you to go all the way forward with me to October 22nd, 2015. And the October 22nd, 2015 report is called Inquiry into Child Physical Abuse, Child Emotional Abuse, and Bullying in the Gambia. That's the title of the report. Now I want to start with just the beginning of the report so you understand what they, how they set this up. So before we touch on the report, there are 3 basic ideas I want to address first. Those 3 ideas. The first one is when you are caught in a lie, there are 3 basic things you can do, right? 3 basic things you can do when caught in a lie. You can stop lying, correct the lies and tell the truth. 2, you can stop lying and not tell the truth. Or you can continue to lie. Those are the 3 basic things. Stop lying and tell the truth. Stop lying and not tell the truth, or keep lying. Okay, that's the first thing I wanted to just throw out there so when you look at this report, this is in your thinking. Secondly, you have to look at this report from an understanding and a knowledge that on October 22nd, 2015, who knew the truth? What was the truth? And how did they use the truth? And did they tell the truth? So on October 22nd, 2015, what do they know and when did they know it? And you have to realize that's why you start in October, and we're going to work backwards on the report and on the facts that meet up with this report. And then thirdly, anytime you're going to have a conversation around events, and you're going to look at timelines, you're going to look at things that happened in the timeline, it's important to know what the timeline is and all the events that are material in that timeline. So what I want to do is I want to make sure that we're working off of a definition, and that definition is of deceit. What is deceit? Deceit is creating a false impression using omission of facts or commission of a false statement. I'll say that again. Deceit is creating a false impression using omission of facts or commission of a false statement. Now I want to illustrate to you just how simple and easy it is when you are not informed to draw conclusions that may be inaccurate and may be intended to be inaccurate. This is my example. My wife and I were married on July 9th, and our first child was born on August 9th. Now I want you to know that is a completely true statement. I have not told you a lie. Everything I said there is true. But I've created a false impression because the way I said it made it sound like August followed July. Now if I'm just involved in a blunder where I created a false impression unintended, then you would ask me some clarifying questions. And when you ask me the clarifying questions, I would easily clarify those questions. You go, so when was your child born? Oh, our first child? Oh yeah, she was born August of 91. And when were you married? We were married July 9th of 1988. Now, isn't it interesting when you put something as simple as a date and a timeline, it changes the impression. It actually changes the events significantly. The age of my child, when the child was born, when the child was conceived. These are all things that are important when you're actually engaged in telling the truth. So 3 things. What do you do when you lie? Who knows the truth on October 22nd, 2015? And how do they use deception to create a narrative that isn't true? So now I want to touch on the report. And the report starts with the first page, right? The title is Inquiry into Child Physical Abuse, Child Emotional Abuse, and Bullying in the Gambia. That is the title. The first page is the distribution page. And there are 14 names on the distribution page. And on those 14 names, there are titles of those 14 people. So let me go through the titles and the names. And I'm going to go for, not in order of what's on the page, but in order of their power. So the Vice President of Global Operations over the Child Safety Team is Dwayne Early. Vice President of Global Operations, Dwayne Early. Second, down from him, Ron Washer, Area Director of Africa. Down from him, Phil McMillan, Regional Administrator. Okay. There are 2 other names listed with ABWE. One is Dr. Tim Hepworth. He is over the International Healthcare Ministry. And the other is Nancy Hepworth. She's Child Safety Officer as of this event's March through October 2015. My sending church pastor is named Marcus Little of Berean Baptist Church in Grand Rapids, Michigan. And their pastor is Pastor Norris Belcher of the Open Door Baptist Church of Westminster. Then there are listed in this group the names. So me, Dan Byram, and my wife Bridget, and our 2 children, and Keith Lippy, Michelle Lippy, and their 18-year-old son, Caleb Lippy. That is the entire group of people who are allowed by ABWE to read this report. So 14 people are allowed to read this report. Now, all those titles are there for a reason, and the titles are there so you know who everybody is. But there is one title missing. And let me explain it to you. In September, the month before this report came out, our team leader held team meetings in the Gambia. And there are notes and minutes to those team meetings. And within those minutes, he says that one of the difficulties he's having is being team leader. It's taking up his time. You go to July 2015, and the team leader writes an email to our team saying that both Phil McMillan and Ron Washer have asked that he stay on as team leader. In December of 2014, we had meetings at ABWE where we selected him as team leader. The team leader of our team from December, when he was selected by December 10th, until this report and after, was a man named Keith Lippy. He is our team leader. Now, I want to assure you that this isn't a made-up title. This isn't an emeritus. It's a management position in the hierarchy of ABWE. So the question is this an intended omission of a title? I'm just going to leave it out there so you understand. There is a team leader. He was involved in this incident. His child was involved in this incident, but his title isn't involved in this incident. Okay, so I want to talk about the history of the report. This is the next section of the report. And I'm just going to list some dates really quickly, and then we'll touch on all those dates. Okay, so March 8th is the critical incident. It took place. We spent 1 week trying to work through the critical incident. We used Matthew 18, 15 to 17. We asked Frank Weirman to do a conflict resolution with the families. We went through those processes. Keith and I met before that. Matthew 18, first process, meet with your brother, didn't work. Matthew 18, bring 2 or 3, try to work it out as a group, didn't work. So we had to get ABWE involved. So on March 16th, it was reported. Okay. The next date, March 23rd to 25th, April 25th, June 10th, and then all 6 of the birthdays of the 2 18-year-olds and the 4 minors are listed in this report. So they've got these dates listed to give you a history of the report so that you know where we're sitting when you read this in October 22nd, 2015. So I'm going to touch on one paragraph, and that one paragraph says this. It says that Phil McMillan traveled to Gambia between March 23rd and March 25th. He met with both families in different locations in Banjul. Phil McMillan made decisions concerning both families for an early departure. The Byrams left April 25th, and the Lippies left in the middle of May. That's the paragraph I want to talk about right now. That paragraph is supposed to be simply facts. Nothing to see here. Move forward with the information. You kind of got the lay of the land. Okay, so I want to run back through those because here's the facts, okay? Did Phil McMillan travel to Gambia between the 23rd and the 25th of March 2015? Yes, it's true. It's true for several reasons. One is there were witnesses. 2, there was a document. It's plane tickets, right? They were paid for by ABWE. There were witnesses. It's not in dispute. So date 1, March 23rd to 25th is accurate and true. Did he meet with the Byrams in Banjul? Yeah, we're not disputing that. Did he meet with the Lippies in Banjul? Yeah, we're not disputing that. Did the Byrams leave April 25th? Yeah, we're not disputing that. So let's go back to that one phrase where he says Phil McMillan made decisions about both families for an early departure. So the question you have to ask there, Phil McMillan made decisions about both families for an early departure. The implication is the decision was early departure. But there's a gap of what the decisions were. Now keep in mind, this is a confidential report. This isn't a public report. This is a confidential report. So everybody who this report is distributed to, the 14 people, have a right to know all the facts. Let's go back to the witnesses now. There's a witness. His name is Barney Robeson. Okay, Barney Robeson picked up Phil McMillan from the airport on March 23rd, and Barney Robeson returned Phil McMillan to the airport on March 25th. Barney Robeson sat as a scribe with Phil McMillan and us on the 23rd. Barney Robeson sat as a scribe with the Lippies on March 24th. Barney Robeson took us to the airport on April 24th. We got back in the States on the 25th. The Lippies left in the middle of May. So Barney Robeson is a witness, eyewitness. So let's see what Barney Robeson says. Keep in mind, the report says the Lippies left in the middle of May. May has 31 days. If we're going to guess, middle of May would be the 16th, right in the middle. There are some things you need to know about the flights, so I'll mention those now. Flights left on Mondays, Tuesdays, and Fridays. It was tourist season. They always left Mondays, Tuesdays, and Fridays. So if the Lippies left in the middle of May, it would have been probably May 15th, which is a Friday. But let's look at what the eyewitness says. Barney Robeson writes to his prayer team, and he writes an email, and it says, "Please be in prayer for our team. We are under spiritual attack." The Lippies left earlier in the week to go back to the States to be with an adult daughter going through some deep waters. So they left earlier in the week. Barney Robeson sent that email on May 8th, Friday morning, May 8th. So according to the eyewitness, Barney Robeson, the latest the Lippies could have left the Gambia is May 5th. Not middle of May, May 5th. Okay? That's what the eyewitness tells us. So then you have to go back to October 22nd and you have to ask yourself, who in the distribution lists understands the concepts of deception And why would they need to extend the timeline to work through their history of the report? What is the purpose of extending the timeline? Well, then we have to go and say, well, wait a second, what did Barney Robeson say? They went back to the States to be with an adult daughter going through some deep waters. Maybe Barney got it wrong. Maybe Barney doesn't know what he's talking about. Phil McMillan made decisions probably by the 25th. That's when he told us we were returning to the States. So he must have told the Lippies that on that same day they were returning to the States. So what would be the purpose of extending the timeline? And then maybe Barney Robeson doesn't have it correct. On July 22nd, Keith Lippy writes an email to our team. He copies on that email to Phil McMillan and Ron Washer. And here's what Keith Lippy says in July. As many of you know, we returned unexpectedly to the States in May because we got some news from home about some family issues that need to be worked through. So then we consulted with our sending church pastor, and we consulted with Phil McMillan, and we consulted with Ron Washer, and he lists their titles in this email. And we were given a medical leave to return to the States to deal with the family issues there. Keith confirms in July what the eyewitness says in May. So they were given a medical leave to return to the States to be with an adult daughter going through some deep waters. That is the narrative. So to help you understand and to keep this straight, I printed out a calendar. And the green are highlighted dates that are known to be true. And the orange and anything kind of surrounded with orange are dates that are not used, listed, or supposed to be known. And then some of the green dates are also not supposed to be known. But here it is. You can pause this. But the 8th, the 16th, the 23rd, or the 25th, the 30th is when we bought our tickets. The 25th is when we the 24th is when we flew home on April. The Lippies left no later than the 5th of May, even though Barney Robeson says something about the 8th of May. They left the 5th of May when they were supposed to leave the 16th of May. So this is the timeline of events on the calendar so far. So on October 22nd, 2015, 3 things you have to ask yourself, as we talked about earlier. Do the people on the distribution list, all 14 and above, all adults, do they know what deception is? That's one. What do they do when caught in a lie? What do they know on October 22nd, 2015? Well, we can assume that Keith, Michelle, and Caleb Lippy know they were given a medical leave. We can assume that they know the date they actually left. We can assume that both Ron Washer and Phil McMillan, who controlled the purse strings as to what would happen, gave them a medical leave. So on October 22nd, when they say Phil McMillan made decisions about both families for an early departure, there were 3 decisions made, 3 distinct decisions. And I'm going to touch on those now, and then I'll give you a little more explanation as we go along. So decision 1, on March 8th, there was an altercation, a fistfight, violence, where a 14-year-old was assaulted by an 18-year-old. That's the reported incident. On March 16th, it goes to the child safety team, to Nancy Hepworth, a mandatory reporter under the laws of Pennsylvania. It is not reported to Pennsylvania. It's not reported to anyone. Instead, ABWE decides to keep it in-house and to send Phil McMillan out to the Gambia to address it. On March 25th, Phil McMillan decides that there is no bullying, there is no violence, there is no victim here. His decision is decision 1. We'll call decision 1, there's nothing to see here. From March 8th to March 25th is decision 1. No bullying, no violence, nothing. Phil Phil McMillan writes and says that the skirmishes between the boys is not the main problem, that the skirmishes don't rise to the level of legal or practical to be concerned with. That is decision 1 on March 25th. On March 25th, he also decided that Dan Byram, me, I have 3 distinct problems that will go undefined in any form or fashion. My first problem is called my spiritual foundations have some type of struggle. I have philosophy of ministry issues. And then thirdly, I have anger lurking under the surface that he perceives. Decision 2 is that Dan Byram needs counseling for his anger issues, and I need to go back to the States to get those. Then he writes that this isn't a punishment for some act on your part. I am not prejudiced. I did not single you out. Don't think that there aren't other decisions being made. He says, just because I don't tell you what's happening on the Lippy side of the equation, don't think their needs aren't being met. June 26th, 2015, Tim Hepworth. Tim asked me, what were you told the reason you were going home? Dan. I was told a lot of things. What was I told in the meeting? I had with my wife, I have low emotional intelligence. I was told that I am angry. I was told you're going home to get in touch. I don't know. Did he say spiritual foundations in that meeting? I was being sent home to deal with my anger, my deep-seated anger issues. Tim, your anger issues? Dan, my anger issues. Tim, not your son? Dan, not my son. Decision 3, also most likely made by March 25th, is that they got news from home about a family issue that needed to be worked through. Unexpectedly in May. Go back to October 22nd, 2015. What do we know to be true? We know that Phil McMillan, Ron Washer, Keith Lippy, Michelle Lippy, and Caleb Lippy know about the medical leave. They know about the report of abuse. They know what's going on the Byram side of the equation. Let's go to October 22nd, and we also know that Tim and Nancy Hepworth know. We also know that Dwayne Early knows. These 8 people know the truth, and they write one sentence as their explanation of the truth. Phil McMillan made decisions about both families for an early departure. 3 distinct decisions. There is no child abuse, Dan Byram is the problem, and Keith Lippy needs a cover story. Those are the decisions made by Phil McMillan on March 25th. So to nail down the truth, I want to go back to the timeline. And I asked the question earlier, why is this date referenced when they know it's not true? Why is this date not referenced when they know it is true? Why do they need to extend the timeline? Here's the difficulty, and I'll explain it to you. On March 25th, 2015, Phil McMillan told us that we were leaving the Gambia and we need to get tickets. He wanted us gone in 2 weeks. So we sent our travel agent an email asking for our tickets as soon as we could get them. And she sent us an email back and said, pretty hard to do given the fact that this is tourist season. First, we got our tickets. We sent it over to ABWE. ABWE purchased our tickets and we got a receipt on March 31st to leave on April 24th. Okay? It took us 25 days to get those tickets. Let's just extrapolate the Lippys took 25 days to get their tickets. They're writing this report on October 22nd, knowing that they're trying to extend the timeline for a reason. And what is the reason? Because there's 3 distinct decisions, they're trying to separate them out, but they're marrying them back up in October with a caveat that they can extend the timeline. So if Keith Lippy and Michelle Lippy and Caleb Lippy left on May 15th, and Barney Robeson was just not in his right mind, got their tickets 25 days before that, most likely, would have put it about April 20th. Okay? April 20th would have put them in a new era. So there's 3 eras. The first era is the abuse, no abuse. The second era is Dan Byram has mental issues. And the third era is the Lippies got an unrelated, unconnected, completely separate issue popped up, and they had to go home unexpectedly in May. So here's the problem. They did not leave on the 15th of May. They left on the 5th of May. If you do the math backwards, they bought their airline tickets. If it took them 25 days, they bought their airline tickets between April 10th and April 16th. Here's what they're trying to avoid. Phil McMillan wrote a letter to our pastor on April 16th. After he gets past Dear Dan and Bridget, down to his name that says Phil McMillan, he is telling a complete fabrication of the facts. He has made up an entire narrative and written a letter to our pastor claiming that he's prayed about these issues, claiming that these are the truth, when he knows on October 22nd, 2015, that he has told lies. Because by April 16th, when he says, you weren't singled out, I'm not prejudiced, this isn't a punishment from some act on your part, you need counseling, I'm taking care of the Lippies, everything's good. Conversely, he's making up a story that is not only told to his pastor, but is told to our team. Not only is it told to our team, but it is told to his supporters. Phil McMillan, Ron Washer, Keith Lippy, Caleb Lippy, and Michelle Lippy know the truth on October 22nd. Dwayne Early, Tim Hepworth, Nancy Hepworth know the truth on October 22nd. If this doesn't disturb you, there's an issue with you. Because there's 3 things we talked about, right? What is the definition of deception? Deception is creating a false impression using omission of facts or commission of false statements. What do you do when caught in a lie? You can stop lying and correct the truth. You can stop lying and not correct the truth, or you can keep lying. What does ABWE do when caught in a lie? They keep lying. Okay, so this brings us to June 10. I sent an email to Ron Washer expressing my dissatisfaction with the way things were handled. I sent him the email. I have a printed copy of it right here, so I will read it to you. But this is what they write in the report. Always keep in mind the 3 things. 1 is this always has to be looked at through the eyes and knowledge of those writing the report on October 22nd. 2, when caught in a lie, what do you do? And 3, what is the definition of deception? So on June 10, Ron Washer received a letter from Dan Byram expressing his dissatisfaction with the way ABWE had responded to the report submitted by Frank Weirman and Barney Robeson. I want you to hear those names again, Frank Weirman and Barney Robeson. Now, listen to my letter written to Ron Washer, Area African Director, who answers to Dwayne Early, who is copied in this letter. And I'll read it to you. It says, the last few months have been extremely difficult for our family. There has been a conflict for most of our time in the Gambia between Caleb Lippy and our son, which finally came to a head with a physical altercation between the 2. After seeking counsel, praying, and attempting to resolve a serious situation or serious issue to no avail, it became necessary we report this situation under the Child Protection Policy. After Phil McMillan arrived to begin his investigation, it became apparent to us throughout the process that he was not impartial. We were surprised by the tone and further surprised by the outcome. There was no resolution to the incident or the bullying. It was swept aside as a non-issue. Instead, Phil focused on Dan as the central issue, resulting in sending our family home from the field. At this point, the situation remains unresolved. We have much to say and discuss with you regarding the situation, and we desire a God-honoring solution dealing with the issues. Please contact our pastor, Marcus Little, to begin the conversation on this matter. He may be contacted by phone or email. Sincerely, Dan Byram, Bridget Byram. Did you hear Frank's name or Barney's name? No. Why? Because I didn't have a problem with their report, because their report was not anything of substance. It was just, hey, here's the problem, come out and help. I didn't even know what they said. I don't care what they said. What they said doesn't matter. Ron Washer knows on June 10th specifically that he's already issued the Lippies a medical leave. He knows that. By the time this report is written on October 22nd, 2015, they know they're hip deep in retaliation, intimidation, and obstruction of justice, that they haven't done what they're supposed to do. This is ABWE's integrity statement. It says, integrity. ABWE is committed to biblical integrity. It will govern every facet of our ministry. We will encourage one another to accurate and open communication, a holy lifestyle, responsible fiscal stewardship, and the avoidance of exaggeration, misrepresentation, deception, breach of ethics. I know I'm jumping around, but it's the best way to tell the story in my opinion, and I'm the one telling the story, so that's why I'm jumping around. I want you to go all the way back to March 16th. Barney Robeson and Frank Weirman, they make a report to Phil McMillan and Nancy Hepworth, and that report is taken, and then Phil McMillan comes out on the 23rd of March. So, in our conversation in September, Nancy lets us know that, I say, why wasn't there a report taken at the time? Where's that report? Can I see that report? And she says, well, I never actually wrote one. Now, just pause right there for 1 second. This is ABWE's document, okay? And I'm going to read what it says at the top so you understand what the document says. If you read the document, what does it say? ABWE alleged child abuse report. And here's the instructions. It says this report should be completed for every alleged abuse under ABWE's policy definitions, and report no matter how minor, how preliminary, and even if the offender is a minor. Okay? Under the bottom line, it says, under additional information, Nancy Hepworth received a report of suspected child abuse from Barney Robeson and Frank Weirman on March 16, 2015. This form was filled out by Nancy Hepworth on September 4th, 2015, when she realized that this step had never been taken. I got an email from Nancy on Monday, September 7th, and says, Dear Dan and Bridget, I have attached the report form that I filled out from what Frank and Barney sent to Phil. The points listed in the report are the same that you brought out in the interview we had with you. That's what she says. That's September 7th, 2015. I have neglected to mention one very important thing about the report. This is in the report that Nancy Hepworth filled out on September 4th. That should have been filled out on March 16th. And in that report, it asks this question. It says, others with knowledge of this report. And then it asks these questions. Who else knows about the alleged abuse? No one's name is listed, but several people know. List the names, relationships of the victim, job, phone number, etc. Was it reported to any foreign government? That answer is no. Law enforcement? That answer is no. Or Child Protective Services, Service Agency? That answer is no. Nancy Hepworth, Ron Washer, Phil McMillan, Dwayne Early, and the entire child safety team are all mandatory reporters at ABWE. Mandatory reporters. This isn't a boo-boo, a skip over, an oopsie-daisy. They have intended never to report themselves and their actions to anybody. That's why the report is written the way it's written. That's why it is confidential. That's why it is buried under a pile of disinformation. That's why you have to look at those three things. What's the definition of deception? Deception is creating a false impression using omission of facts or commission of false statements. Deception is intentional. 2, when caught in a lie, do you stop lying and tell the truth? Do you just stop lying, or do you keep lying? And 3, what do these people already know? There's 8 people who know all the truth in October 22nd, 2015. They just don't know I have access to all this information as well. They're in the dark because they chose to be. I'm telling you everything, and I've told them everything because I have chosen to. Because the truth should be important. Honesty, ethics, integrity, and truth. You can't get to truth without honesty, ethics, and integrity. All you get to is dishonesty, unethical, lack of integrity, and lies.